welcome. As John Oliver would say, welcome, welcome, welcome to DEI for Real. And I am Chris Jones. Spectre Diversity is the organization that I'm a co-founder of. And we have the only statistically validated assessment, diversity and inclusion assessment, that measures both the individual and the organization in a single um, survey. And my cohort, my partner in crime or not crime, is
Not crime, not crime, lawyer.
not crime, not crime, not crime, is Nancy Schick. Go ahead, Nancy.
So before I introduce myself, I am just going to mention that I know that we've been talking about some difficult topics, and today's topic in particular has made some people uneasy. So if you are not going to be on screen, I understand you don't want to have your face on screen. But if you're also concerned, because we are recording this, you can just change your name. If you don't know how to do that, you can go to, I believe you go to maybe the three dots next to your name on the screen, and you can change it to something that is nondescript. You can call yourself Blue or dog or cat or whatever your favorite animal is if you don't want
Mickey
anybody to see
Mouse.
your name on the screen. Right. So I just thought I'd bring that to your attention because I do understand that there's concerns about the topic for today and some of the things we've been talking about in DEI generally. But so all that being said, I'm Nancy Schick of Third Ear Conflict Resolution. I am an employment attorney licensed in New York, and I also do mediations in workplaces. At this point, I do them globally because we do so many things remotely. And I am going to introduce our guest because I think she is the star of our show today. Thank you, Kelly Lego, for being here. Kelly's the managing attorney at MVP Law in Maryland, which does employment immigration. So that's why she is here. You can imagine she's been pretty busy this year, and yeah, I met Kelly through a group that I'm in called Video Social. So if you're familiar with my YouTube channel, you'll see my weekly videos there. And Kelly was in my group for a little while. We would love to have you back when you can. I understand why you're not there, but Kelly's been also working in and around things like homelessness, veterans, youth, and obviously in immigration. All of these things come together. She's been in a variety of positions in the immigration section of the Maryland State Bar Association, and this is kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, this is kind of your jam.
Thank you. So let's get started. Our first job in the real is re reassure. And I am going to reassure you that yes, it's scary. It is very scary. We want this to be interactive, so feel free to use the chat and we will answer as best we can. The fingerprint there is overlaid with the Venezuelan flag. And the reason for that is because of one of the immigration things that happened. It's about ICE. They carried out a raid in Colorado. 100 members of the Venezuelan gang were targeted. Um, Along with that, one of the things that happened was there's a group called Colorado Rapid Response Network, and it's an immigrant rights group. And when these ICE raids were happening, they had megaphones and they were in the neighborhoods advising residents not to speak or open doors. So that's scary. Here's another scary. ICE was in LA and they arrested 7 at a car wash. And in this instance, community leaders were asking for people to document the ICE raids. And they had thousands of volunteers with their smartphones. Another scary thing that happened is ICE's family separations are forcing children to parent themselves. Here's 2 examples. There's Beverly Juarez, 21. She is now the sole caretaker of her 3 younger siblings after her parents, who had been here for 20 years, were deported. I'm hoping that Beverly knows where they actually were deported to, although that's not always the case. Another example was 6-year-old Gabriela Pineda, and I hope I pronounced that close to correctly. Her mother was detained, and now she lives with her mom's fiance that she hardly even knows. So far, and this is as of July 27th, so this data is a little bit old, but there were 56,945 people that were detained by ICE, and 71% of them have no criminal convictions. 75% have only immigration violations or traffic offenses. So if you got a speeding ticket, you're out. So that is the scary part. And we're going to talk about each one of these coming up in educate. And this is where my two experts here, mostly Kelly, can weigh in. So on legal rulings, um, oh, I wanted to tell you a story first. This is a story Kelly and I shared before we got online today. And it was a colleague of mine, somebody I know, not well, but I know, and is a naturalized citizen, has been in the States for 30 years. He works at a big box store, and a friend of his, a coworker, has been here for 10 years and has a green card. And one day ICE came in and they nabbed him. And he was saying, as he's being hauled out, he's saying, but I have a green card, but I have a green card. And the ICE people said, that doesn't matter anymore. So that is one of the things that we will be discussing. So let's start with our legal rulings. The appeals court ruled that Trump's birthright citizenship order was unconstitutional. So appeals court ruled on it, but SCOTUS Supreme Court has not yet ruled on us. Kelly, what can you say about this?
That is actually one of the court cases that I'm not too concerned about. And Nancy, I believe that you agree with me because the Constitution itself, 14th Amendment says that everyone born on US soil is a United States citizen. So the problem is, and I don't think they've thought so far ahead, is that if you're going to cause that type of problem where you're going to take citizenship away from children that are born in this country, you're creating almost like a stateless person. And that has its own issues for tax purposes, for state law purposes. And that's just not something that, again, we even want to get into the details of. Again, I'm going to go back to our Constitution. Our 14th Amendment says that people that are born, whether United States citizen parents or not, if they're born on US soil, they are protected under our laws and they are protected by the United States Constitution, and they will be US citizens. So that is actually one court case that it continues to linger in the background, but I'm not too concerned about it.
Oh, good. I like any little piece of good news we can get. This was a recent ruling, and this is confusing to me because the Supreme Court ruling for, I think for Harvard, I think it was Harvard, that said, about admissions couldn't be based on race. And the Supreme Court just said that ICE could stop people based on their race, like, do you have brown skin? Your language, are you speaking another language, or your job or location? So if you're a landscaper or a roofer or a car wash person, they can stop you.
This case stemmed out of Los Angeles as a result of all of the turmoil that happened when the National Guard was called in. The decision is limited to California. However, it's being played out all across the United States of America. That case still lingers on. But as of right now, yes, ICE is able to stop individuals based on race, language, job, or location.
But only in California?
No, anywhere.
Everywhere.
That's what we're saying. Yes, the actual decision is limited in scope to California, but we're seeing it play out all across the United States.
Okay, so it's, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
This
think you can
one,
look
top,
at, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, you finish your
I
thought
was
there,
just going to
Nancy.
say, you could, one of the things that's very problematic about this is we saw it under the Patriot Act also many, many years ago, that profiling with law enforcement it's been done. That's part of the DEI, that's part of the programming that we've been working on for years, is to say, no, you need probable cause, right? You need more than just, hey, you look like you might be foreign, right? But here we are having this discussion in 2025. I
And
have a
this
hard time
one, next,
reconciling this. Yeah.
yeah, I know. Ditto, ditto, ditto. This one I don't understand. Top immigration court rules that judges can deny bond to millions of immigrants. Does that mean that they are just stuck there and they can't like pay $1 million to get out of jail, or what does that mean?
Yes, ma'am, that's what it means. So the Board of
Oh,
Immigration Appeals essentially came down, and there's two groups of people that we're talking about. We're talking about arriving aliens, which I hate to use that terminology, so I'm going to say arriving non-immigrants, or arriving foreign individuals, right? And then all others. So all others could be potential visa overstays, somebody who came into the country, their visa expired, now they've become undocumented, so they're part of the same category of all the other undocumented individuals in this country. So what was happening prior to this decision is that as long as you were not deemed an arriving alien, you were not subject to mandatory detention. What this Board of Immigration Appeals case determined is that those who have been in the United States, who entered without inspection, we call it EWI, and although they may have been here for 25, 30, 40 years, have their own businesses, are employing US workers, have their own families, they are now categorizing them as arriving aliens. So prior to this decision, those who came into this country, EWI, without any authorization, were able, based on positive factors, were able to essentially apply for bond. Now they're being called arriving aliens. So because of being an arriving alien, you are subject to mandatory detention, meaning you are sitting in detention until your master calendar hearing before a judge. Now, there are certain individuals, based on the very case-specific details, that may be eligible for an habeas filing. And habeas just means, a habeas corpus filing means that essentially you have a right to go before a judge in a much quicker time period to determine whether or not your detention is even lawful. Okay?
well,
Go ahead.
hasn't habeas corpus been ignored recently? That people are just being shipped out of to anywhere?
Okay, so those who are just being shipped out anywhere, like we're going into the weeds, but we can wind it back. So those people that are just getting shipped anywhere, more than likely are being picked up on expedited removal. If you've been in the United States for less than 2 years and you don't have any type of parole or any of that, meaning you came into the United States, you've been here less than 2 years, if you come in contact with ICE, they can automatically push you forward for expedited removal. And what that means is shipping you either back to your country or to another country, unless you say that you have a fear of return to your home country and are able to pass through a credible fear interview.
Okay. My goodness.
And
Okay,
then
next one.
those who are visa overstays essentially are still able to request a bond hearing.
Okay,
Can I
and
just
then this is,
make a quick comment?
sure.
Just for those of you that are hearing some of the language that Kelly's using, she's using the language right out of the statutes. Okay, so I understand that some of the people that come to our sessions are like we are. We're sensitive to some of the language, but she's really just using the language right out of the law. So
Oh,
I think
like
that's
alien.
why we hear the words like alien. That's the way it's been written forever.
Okay. And these are other immigration law changes. Are there any, such as the birthright citizenship, that we really don't need to worry about?
I
Oh,
think we lost Kelly. She's probably going
we
to come back in.
did.
It looks like she froze. There she is.
Oh, and you're on mute, Kelly.
Thank you. My entire computer just shut down, so thank you for being patient.
Oh, you were fast to get your computer
Yeah,
up
that
and
was
get
good.
logged in. Whoa.
This is the way Kelly Lego works. She is on it these days.
Okay. So my question was, which you might not have heard, is that, here's other immigration law changes. Which ones are a big deal and which ones really are not?
Okay, the law boosting detention and border wall budgets. I mean, there's not much we can do about that, right? So I don't want to spend too much time on.
Okay.
Oh, we somehow
We
lost
lost your audio again.
your audio, but I will
Oh,
mention.
and she froze again.
Yeah, okay, she froze again, so
Oh, she might be going out and coming back in.
yeah,
So,
so Kelly, when you can come back in the meantime, I will tell you that Kelly and I have a colleague that does nothing but immigration for couples, and she has been seeing a lot of changes to the extent that even during that final interview with ICE and immigration, right, that they can still pick you up to the day of approving you for the marital visa, for a green card, for any of this. It's something we
and
have been.
if you'd like a funny version of the green card interview, you can watch the movie with Sandra Bullock called The Proposal. And at the end of it, there's a green card. Yeah, a marriage interview where it's being contested that Sandra Bullock and Ryan
Ryan
Reynolds
Reynolds.
aren't really together. So anyway,
I am back. I apologize again.
that's okay. So we just went through the first two. What about the last three? Anything you can
Okay.
shed some light on in those?
I missed shows that I'm muted, but can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
You're
perfect.
logged in
can you-
twice for some reason.
Because it's still logged into my computer, but it's fine as long as you don't mind.
We're getting two of you. It's awesome.
That may be a little too much for some people. So you mentioned the USCIS marriage green card forms. Did you also mention the fact that on August 1st, there was an announcement that came out that basically said, although the practice has always been that if you're married to a United States citizen, essentially, as long as there's no deportability issues, you're essentially going to be okay throughout the process. Well, on August 1st, we were reminded that the filing of the I-130 and the 485 provides no protection from removal or deportation. So you still could be issued a notice to appear and have to go to an immigration court. That doesn't mean that your case ends. That just means that you then proceed before the immigration judge rather than the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services.
Yeah. And thank you
Is
for
that what is
explaining that.
happening? Because I've heard about when people show up for an ICE hearing that they're taken by
Two different
ICE.
types of cases. Yep.
Okay.
So I can explain that though. So ICE, you're only going to, ICE and EOIR, which is the Executive Office for Immigration Review. That is when you have been given a notice to appear, an NTA, and you have to, by all means, follow the law and show up in court so that you can have your day in court before a judge, right? In that instance, what was happening is individuals were showing up to court because they had to. If they did not, they got an in absentia order, which meant for immediate deportation, right? So they showed up in court and then the judge dismissed the case. By dismissing the case, ICE was waiting right outside the door. So essentially an applicant who was pro se, which means they filed on their own without the assistance of an attorney or a BIA accredited representative, Board of Immigration Appeals representative, or a nonprofit, thought that that was good news, right? My case has been dismissed, only to walk outside the courtroom
Yay.
and have ICE right there to arrest them and detain them and now put them into proceedings, or detain them and then, fast track, determine how long they've been in this country. Most of those cases that were going before the court, those individuals were eligible for expedited removal. So essentially they were put into or taken by ICE and then processed. In terms of, on the flip side, USCIS, so the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, where ICE comes in there is when you're going to your field office appointment. Now, so far, again, this policy did not go into effect until August 1st, or that's when they told us about it, right? We haven't heard any essential, arrest in the field office except for here and there, right? We haven't heard it be as routine as it was in the immigration courts. However, I was just notified last week that there were a few ICE individuals actually waiting in USCIS field offices in Chicago, Illinois, so that the moment that they walked back for their I-130, which is the immigrant petition for alien relative, and the 485, the adjustment of status application, that an ICE agent was waiting for them in the room.
Yeah.
So not even allowing them to conduct the interview as soon as they get called back there and then taking them into detention.
And that's what I was referring to. Thank you for clarifying the technicalities of all of that, because we get pieces of it, myself included, and I have a general understanding, but you're clearly on the ground every day with this. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I wish we had more information, but I mean, my job as an immigration attorney, again, when new clients are coming through the door about family-based cases, it's a matter of we need to put everything out on the table and determine whether or not now is the time to file, right? And unfortunately, although it's bad news, I have to let every client know that this is a possibility, whether or not you even have any inadmissibility or deportability issues, right? Because we know that the rule of law is being challenged every day in the United States of America.
And I'm going to move us along because there are so many questions.
Yeah,
And these are more regular people questions.
gotcha.
So basically they're mine. Can ICE enter private property? Can they come in my house?
Only with a judicial warrant. So what might happen is they try to come to your house and say, we're looking for so-and-so. And they say, we have an administrative warrant. Well, you can certainly pass the warrant underneath the space underneath the door, or you can put it up to the window. But an administrative warrant is not something that compels you to open the door. A judicial warrant would. So an administrative warrant is going to be issued by ICE. Right. And at the top of the actual administrative warrant, it's going to say Department of Homeland Security, arrest warrant, or warrant for removal, deportation. Whereas a judicial warrant is going to say United States District Court of such and such,
Court,
and it's going
blah,
to
blah.
be signed by an actual judge, not an ICE or HSI, which is Homeland Security investigator. It's going to be signed by an actual judge. So only are they allowed to enter your private home or your private areas of your business if they have a judicial warrant that specifically names you and the place to be searched.
Is my car private property? If I'm in the
Yeah,
inside of my car?
Yes. So you can, and unless there is a judicial warrant, I would not consent to the search of your vehicle.
So and I'm sure a lot of people have seen these videos, but I saw one where they broke into the car window when the person, that's illegal unless they have a judicial warrant.
Or probable cause. Yeah.
And probable cause could be that they have brown skin.
Anything. Yes, ma'am.
Anything.
They were speaking
Okay.
Spanish. Yeah.
They were speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
Can ICE arrest people?
ICE can arrest people. Yes.
Okay. Can ICE
Because
enter a
essentially
place of
they're
business?
arresting them or detaining them, but yes.
Detaining.
Yeah.
In my mind, that's same.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
know, arrest, detain.
I understand, yes.
Right.
Okay, can ICE enter a place of business? Can they go into, like my friend that was in the, working in the big box store, they went in there and
Yeah.
took that guy that had a green card.
Yes, ICE may enter public spaces. So Best Buy,
Okay.
Costco, restaurants, office parks, right? Now there becomes a restriction in terms of the private spaces of your facility. So that means where your workers are, like, if you have offices, right? Or let's say for a restaurant, when you have the kitchen and the back room where the office is, you need to make sure, if you are an employer, that you have signs that say employees only or private. Because as
And
long as,
so,
go ahead.
well, and so like a lot of companies where I've done freelance work, they have pass protection. Like you can't go in unless you, boop, you know, do
Yeah.
your code card.
Yeah, but in those cases, again, it's restricted, right? But
Right.
in terms of like public places, like for instance, I have a shared office space where we have individual offices. Now they couldn't come essentially back where the individual office is unless they had a judicial warrant to search a particular office. However, they can go and sit in the common area until I come out of my office.
Okay. And I already got the answer to this one from Nancy, and it's very disappointing. Are ICE masks legal?
Yeah, except for in California now. So it's essentially, we need states to act independently and make decisions on these types of cases.
Should people carry identification at all times? And do they have to show their IDs? You know, should people be walking around with their passports now if they've got them?
No, no. Now, a US citizen, I mean, it depends on the person, right? Because if we're talking about somebody who is undocumented, we don't want them carrying anything that would allow the US government to know that they're not from the United States of America. And as soon as you pull out a passport, it shows exactly where you're from, right? Because when you go before the immigration judge, a few of the things that ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, or the prosecutor has to prove is your alienage, where you're from. You don't want to give them any information that's going to determine where they're from. Say your name and then remain silent, and you want to speak with an attorney. Right?
Well,
But in the instance
that
of,
was my next question.
Yeah.
Can people refuse to talk?
So I just, before we move on, I want to go back to this question, Kelly, because look, I have friends who have kids that are, they're young men, they're at that age where they're going to go out, they're bilingual, they're going to speak sometimes in Spanish. And I've been telling them, please don't go out without your IDs. They are American citizens, but I can see them being, knuckleheads like we all were at that age. And you forget your ID. Am I advising them correctly by telling them they better make sure they always have their ID on them?
it's like a catch-22, right? Because we want to protect everyone. And that's why we have the red cards, because the red cards, essentially everybody is protected in the United States once you put your foot on US soil, whether you have lawful status to remain in this country or you do not. So by carrying around identification, and then if you ask for it, pulling it out, you're essentially negating the purpose of the red card and the fact that we don't have to identify who we are in the situation. However, for young children in schools and young children on their way home from schools, or young men who are out going to the movies and all of that, it's a matter of being respectful with law enforcement, saying your name, and saying that, unless I'm being detained, I'd like to leave. And again, it becomes that individual decision. Now, as much as I would like everybody to be up in arms and say, hey, here's my red card, US citizens, undocumented alike, we're going to stand together and we don't need to prove. However, some people, it's going to be your own individual choice. And some people are intimidated by authority when it shows up. So without even thinking, they pull out their identification and go on their merry way. So it's hard for me to give an actual decision on that because it comes back to your own personal stance, right? Because this red card right here protects you.
I'm just gonna keep my kids. They're basically mine too. It's like you have to stay home. You can invite your friends over. You can stay home. It's like, that's it. No going out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But I
yeah, no
know,
going
like
out.
they're young. I would want to go out too, and it's hard because I worry about them, and it's the same things that I hear some of the same conversations we've been having with
Yeah.
our young Black children, right? These kinds of conversations, and it's just
Well, and this
like,
might change the conversation. Like some of my Black friends have said, when they have sons, they have the talk, and some of them have that talk when they're really young,
Yeah.
they're like
just like
7 or
women,
8.
we have
Or
to
like
talk to
women, we have to
girls.
talk, yep, we
Yeah.
have to talk to girls and give them. So is all this stuff that's happening with immigration and ICE, how does that impact the talk that
Mm.
parents would have with their, Black and brown children?
I think it's a balancing of maturity levels as well, because you don't want to have the conversation about, immigration with your child if they're already, showing signs of stress, showing signs of post-traumatic
Yeah.
stress. So it's just a matter of, you're a parent, your child well enough to know their maturity level in handling this. And you can, skirt some issues, but I think everyone needs to be well aware of what's happening, and especially the children that do not look like the three of us on this call right now.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Can people refuse to talk and remain silent? You discussed that. This one, I'm going to go to a protest on No King's Day. Just
Mhm.
putting that out there. Is sitting down considered resisting arrest?
In my humble opinion, no, it's not. Because if they wanted to handcuff you from a sitting down position, you can. Resisting arrest is when they are trying to put your hands behind your back and you are purposely avoiding their arrest. If you're trying to run, if they have you on the ground and rather than putting your hands behind your chest or behind your back, you're moving and you're fighting them, right? In terms of sitting down, I don't see how that can be viewed as resisting arrest, because even from a sitting down position, although one's handcuffed, it could be more painful in terms of getting up and you would need assistance. I don't see how that could be construed as resisting arrest. I'm also not a criminal defense attorney, but let me throw that out there. But I don't see how sitting down could be viewed as resisting arrest. But also, let me throw that caveat out there. We've already talked about it. The rule of law is significantly being questioned during these times.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and if you could see me getting up off the floor, even with my hands able to reach the ground, yeah, standing up with my hands behind my back would be not really an option. Is it permissible to capture footage with a smartphone?
Yes. And I would highly recommend that you do. Unfortunately, we have become a society that is, I see something and I don't say something because I don't want to get involved. We need all eyes and arms and feet, paying attention to what's going around us. We need to support and protect everyone, because it's not just our undocumented population that is being attacked. It is our legal population. It is our lawful permanent residents. It is our H-1B holders. It is our EAD workers. It is our parolees. It is our US citizens. So it's a matter of, if you see something that does not look right, say something, record it. You don't have to go to Facebook Live. You don't have to make a video and have it be on TikTok, but make a recording of it, because the only way to get through this is by doing it together and looking out for one another.
Well, and George Floyd, that entire issue wouldn't have happened if that, and I don't know her name, but the young woman, girl, that videotaped the whole thing. And if she wouldn't have done that, it would have been another, Philando Castile or one of the, the many other people that have been detained and or an arrest
Killed.
attempted,
You can
and then
say
they
it,
died.
killed.
Yeah.
So
Killed.
I want to jump in on that though too with the filming. Just one
Mhm.
caveat with that is I agree that you see something and you can record it, definitely record it. Be mindful, however, of where you are, right? Because if you are on your employer's premises, for example, and you're filming, you are in their space. Right? So that's something you have to be aware of still. So I get it, right? But you need to know, like, there are certain spaces, or if imagine you're at the gym and you're in the locker room, you don't want to be filming necessarily in there. So you can, but what I would say at that point, if you filmed in a place that maybe you're not sure you should have been filming at, that's where you film and you don't release it right away and then you go talk to a lawyer. Because you don't want to
Thank you.
complicate things by trying to do the right thing and then causing more problems. So some of this is very, very difficult. So I do see a comment. So I'm just going to read the comment if you want to move on to the next one, and then I'll let you know if there's something we need to respond to.
Well, what resources can help? Obviously, an immigration attorney such as Kelly, but say I don't have any money, where can I go?
Nonprofit organizations. There are a dozen. So I'm located in the state of Maryland, and between Maryland, DC, and Virginia, I believe there are well over 50 different types of nonprofit organizations that are willing to conduct intakes and advise you of your rights. I volunteer with the Pro Bono Resource Center of Maryland at least once a month in the immigration court and provide just a general intake to determine, for those who may have received a notice to appear so that they can determine whether or not they have any relief available, because they may have never been screened for any types of immigration relief, which is asylum, family-based, employment-based, UT, all of those. And you can easily find information about those nonprofits that are in your area if you just do a general Google search as to, immigration client intake, low bono, pro bono, nonprofit organizations. One of the groups that has been, very, very impactful to the immigration bar throughout this whole ordeal for the last 9 months has been the Immigrant Legal Resource Center based out of California. Every other week, they are giving us bi-weekly briefings as to what is happening on the ground in terms of expedited removal, immigration court challenges, USCIS issues, family-based cases, TPS, and then at the end, they always end on, good positive news so that we have something moving forward with that's positive, because a lot of this is negative, right? And it's you want to end on something positive, but it's great to have an organization that, because of all of their staff, they're able to put something together every 2 weeks for us so that, it's a concise piece of information, and it's open to not only the immigration bar, but anybody and everybody, as long as you are not a federal employee.
Excellent.
So
And that,
before we move on, can we address the questions in the chat?
Sure.
I'll just tell you
but
what it is.
I do want to be mindful of the time, because we're supposed to be 45 minutes. We're going to take the full hour today. So go ahead.
Yeah. So is everybody okay with staying for the full hour? Kelly, can you and Chris both do it? Okay,
Yes.
awesome. So this was addressed, but I think if you could just answer the questions again and make it a little succinct to this particular issue so this is a landscape team that's predominantly Latino. What rights do those workers and supervisors have in public versus private spaces? And then what questions can they ask in the moment to protect the crew without interfering with ICE? If you could just go over that again, that would be really helpful.
Okay, in terms of a public space, ICE can come in, right? In terms of a business, private property, ICE cannot come in unless they have a judicial warrant that specifically names the individual and or the place to be searched.
And it has a court Name on
Yes,
that,
at the
not
top.
ICE or Homeland Security, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then I'm sorry, the second question.
Is what in the moment, so now they show up, let's say they're in the public space. They haven't moved into the private because now the supervisor is and the employees need to respond. What can they do in that moment without interfering and putting themselves and everyone else at risk?
Make note of who is on the job site. They really can't interfere too much because this is a public space. And if the government wants to, or ICE wants to individually ask those individuals questions, they certainly can, as long as they're not being detained, they're free to leave. However, if they question them, my advice would be to provide your first and last name only, and that's it. Because again, pursuant to the red card, you have a right to remain silent. And we know in this country, anything can and will be used against you. So you want to exercise your right, provide your name only. I've heard from so many different attorneys on social media, as well as TikTok, as well as my colleagues, that so many people can stay out of detention if they just only provide their name and then zip it.
What is, what's a red card?
I was going to say, could you just tell
Okay.
people where they can get their red card? I have one, Kelly, but since you keep referring to it, why don't you
Yes,
tell people
so
where they can
red
get one?
cards, yes, red cards are available literally almost all over the internet. However, where I ordered mine from is the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, the same organization that is giving these bi-weekly briefings. And basically, I will read it very, very fast, but what it says is, on one side of the card, it's in Spanish, and on the other side of the card, it's in English. It says, "I do not wish to speak with you, answer your questions, or sign or hand you any documents based on my Fifth Amendment rights under the United States Constitution. I do not give you permission to enter my home based on my Fourth Amendment rights under the United States Constitution, unless you have a warrant to enter," and that's again a judicial warrant to enter, "signed by a judge or magistrate with my name on it, and that you slide it under the door. I do not give you permission to search any of my belongings based on my Fourth Amendment rights. I choose to exercise my constitutional rights." These cards are available to citizens and non-citizens alike. Again, English on one side, Spanish on the other. If you go to the ILRC website, they have them in 18 different languages.
You know what? It sounds kind of like a personal version of Miranda rights.
And I'll
Kind
just
of.
address the other question in the chat real quickly is, so what is the obligation of the employer or supervisor if ICE comes? It's to find out do they have a warrant? Is it an administrative warrant or is it a judicial warrant? If it's an administrative warrant, then you do not have to give them access. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this,
Correct.
Kelly. If it is a judicial warrant, it's a different story because they've
Yes,
actually had a judge that's given them probable cause. They've had to prove probable cause in order to get that judicial warrant. At that point, if you don't let them in, you're probably going to get arrested for interfering.
correct.
Okay, and this one, go bag. The idea of a go bag is usually for natural disasters. You know, you've got water and a flashlight and, matches or a lighter or something. Now a go bag is, I have a friend who's transgender, and she has a different kind of a go bag. She has a map that shows her what restrooms she can safely go into that in order for her to get to Mexico. She has tips that were given to Jews escaping Hitler and the Nazis in World War II. She has some other tips from the Underground Railroad activities. And she has, there was a movie about it, The Green Book, I think it was called. She has a version of that. And she also has letters that are stuck on her fridge with magnets that said they're individually addressed, mom, dad, my kids, my ex-spouse, they're different letters that are to them in case she has to take off overnight and has to leave for what she perceives is a reason. So go bag, these are different things. Oops, where's my backspace? Back. Are there things that you would, as an immigration attorney, Kelly, that people would, if they're a green card holder, say, what should they have in their go bag?
Oh, lawful permanent resident, obviously you want to make sure that your green card's in there. I would also make sure that you have some type of facially valid passport in there. Some additional documents that you may want to obtain would be, and this is, I think this goes into your next set of questions too, but essentially family preparedness packets. So that means if you have children, standby guardianships, a will, a power of attorney document, an advance directive. Here in Maryland, that's a healthcare directive. It's a living will that makes, decisions about your welfare. And you want to make sure that they have, copies of their marriage certificate, their birth certificate, items that essentially they will need in order to either seek refuge in another country or to, apply for housing in another state or something of that nature, all the documentation that relates directly to them so that they can prove that, it is them seeking whatever it is that they're seeking. So again, that green card, the passport, your birth certificate, your marriage certificate, whatever other documents you keep near and dear to yourself or in like a safety deposit bag. I have a go bag, because we never know what's going to happen. So you want to have at least a good week's supply of materials in that bag, because we may not have time to grab everything that it is that we need, specifically these very important documents.
Wow. Do you need to have some of your cash in like a Swiss bank account or something like out of country?
I don't advise on that, because that financial and the limitations on finances and what you should carry and what you shouldn't carry, that is something that is beyond the scope of the work that I do. And I don't want anything necessarily coming back to me negatively. So that's something that I choose not to provide an answer to.
And I will jump in on this just real quickly, as one of the things that I mentioned when we were preparing for this particular webinar is that you do your research in advance too of where you could go. Don't expect to, for example, just pop into another country and claim asylum. You need to look into a little bit of where you could go. And it's different for different people. Depending on what your background is, what your reasoning for needing the go bag and feeling like you need to leave the country. So, wanting to go into Mexico even might not work for everybody, right? So just make sure you do a little research so that you don't end up transferring from one problem to another and making your situation even worse, because we're doing this because we care about you.
Well, and that's my trans friend. She's there's two countries that she could get to, and one of them you can go into the country and then apply for asylum, and the other one you have to apply for asylum before you go in. So that's just
every country has its own rules, just like every state here has its own rules. Yeah.
And I'm just going to put these up backspace. What can be done? Understand your rights. That's that red card. Use technology. We've talked a little bit about smartphones and recording things. Community organizing. I'm doing that. I'm not organizing, but I'm participating in community activities. And then advocacy. I would say that this webinar is advocacy in a way. I don't know. Kelly, anything on these 4 topics?
The one thing that I would encourage more people to do, because it isn't done on the right topics, is contact your legislators, contact your senators, contact your representatives, contact them on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. They have to keep records of their responses to you. The only way that we are going to get through this is if we get through it together, and if we report things, and if we say that we're not happy with how things are happening, right? Because those that are on the Hill down in Washington, D.C. are supposed to be following the will of the people. So if the will of the people can continue to keep calling them and writing them and emailing them and sending them letters. They've got to deal with us at some point. It's just not enough right now are doing it.
And thank you for
Okay.
bringing that up, Kelly, because even I sometimes feel like writing my representatives does nothing. But you reminded me that they have to log that and they have to log their response to you. And imagine if all of us did just even once a week address something that is upsetting to us. And being aware that you do have a say. But I think the other reason people don't always say anything is because we don't know what we're supposed to say. But there are also organizations that can help with that. The ILRC, which has the red
Yes.
cards, can probably help you. Obviously, if you're on this webinar, immigration is something that interests you and you have probably some opinions about and some ideas about, and you can find out ways from some of these community organizers on how to frame your position, your argument, whatever it is that you want to express to your representative. Because I think that's something that's often really difficult for all of us is to take all our emotion, channel it. I'm a mediator, right? So that's what I do is I help people channel that emotion into a message that can be heard. So there are definitely resources out there to help you do that. So do reach out. I will take that on. I'm going to start reaching out more as well.
In terms of
And push.
immigration matters, I'm a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, and on our website, we actually have an advocacy drop-down button, and they have take actions, and those take actions are not only available for us as members, but they are available for the public. And we had ones about the big, beautiful bill, big, ugly bill. We had ones about the H-1B program. We had ones about the F-1 students. We had all types of different take actions that are already written, and you just have to put your name to them, but you make it unique and add on another line saying, I wholeheartedly disagree with this, or I wholeheartedly agree with this, and send it off, because again, they have to lodge everything that comes in.
And what's the name of that organization that has that drop down?
The American Immigration Lawyers Association, AILA,
American
AILA.
Immigration Lawyers Association.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you. Okay, and we're almost out of time. Lead, what can you do? And this is for people, a lot of people in our audience are DEI practitioners, consultants, some HR folks. If you're a consultant, advise your clients to seek immigration and counsel, and then get your red card, get copies of them so you can hand them out. If you're an employee and your employer is exploiting undocumented immigrants, you might want to talk to an attorney about whistleblower cases, a whistleblower attorney, because there are attorneys that just do that. And then if you're an immigrant working without proper authorization, get that fixed. Talk to an immigration attorney. Anything that you would like to add here, Kelly? Or Nancy?
I would say it's advisable for any and everyone who is an immigrant in this country right now. If obviously, if you are undocumented, I think the first step is having an initial intake, either with an actual licensed attorney at a law firm or one of those pro bono organizations that we talked about previously in slides beforehand, because if you at least do that initial intake, you can be screened to determine whether or not there is any relief available for you, whether it be asylum and you just haven't, been able to speak with somebody, or you were too afraid to, or a U visa, a T visa. A U visa is for crime victims. A T visa is for trafficking victims, right? It's a matter of speaking with competent counsel who can ask you the necessary questions to determine if you have any relief available. And then if it is determined that you don't have any relief available, right, then it's a matter of taking the initiative to have that family preparedness plan together, where we talked about the power of attorney documents, the will, the standby guardian, that's what unique to here in Maryland, as well as your advanced medical directive.
And I'll throw in that you named off several organizations throughout the webinar. I think we've covered several of them. And something that I think you brought up is that yes, you can go to an attorney, but you can also go to certain not-for-profit organizations. One thing I would caution you is to just, again, do a little research, because there are so many people out there that exploit people who
Yeah.
are in positions of weakness, right? And so you have to be very careful to not put yourself in a position after everything you've already been through to then again put yourself in a position where somebody is exploiting you. Check out the organization before you turn over any information, right? And there's trickery that gets played in a variety of ways, right? Just like we've talked about the rule of law and the way that people can be profiled and then targeted because of their profile. So you want to just be aware of all of that and make sure that, maybe start with an organization like AILA or the ILRC and see if you can get a referral through that process, because they do know who's out there doing the good work. The other thing I just want to throw in real quickly is that, look, if you're an employer and you're hiring undocumented workers, you're asking for it, right? So you need to consult an attorney, and you need to start unraveling your part of this problem too, because I get it. I know, we all know that everybody's out there targeting the worker and the undocumented person, but the reality is they wouldn't still be here if you as the employer weren't employing them. So you need to take your responsibility for this issue as well. And happy to to probably refer them to somebody like Kelly to get for a consultation. But this is not just people coming across the border the way that it's been put in the media. It's a much more complex problem than that, and that's the other reason we're doing these webinars.
Two
Thank
comments.
you.
In terms of the employers, some employers with repeated practices of hiring on an undocumented workforce can result in civil penalties as well as imprisonment. So this is a serious matter. I wanted to make another comment about that AILA organization as well. The same website, AILA.org, AILA.org, has a search directory. So wherever you are in the United States of America, you can look for an immigration attorney that is a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. There's over 16,000 of us nationwide. The other website, in terms of finding a pro bono attorney that is a lesser, so that you're not paying, a full well, we're all licensed attorneys, but they work for a nonprofit. There is, on the EOIR.gov website, there is a list of all nonprofit entities throughout the nation, dependent on the state. So
Thank
there's
you.
two resources in which to find competent legal counsel, so that you can at least have those initial intakes.
Thank you so much.
welcome.
Here's some, I'm going to add to this. Yeah, we need to add to this that the AILA.org and the EOIR.gov. There's so many, but anyway, this is, we will add to this in our PowerPoint. And, we have more sessions coming up. The next one is about getting fired. But Kelly, thank you for being here with us. This is the first time we've had like a specific topic expert. Although I know that expert is a word that you can't necessarily use because it's, yes, so I know enough about the law to know that.
She's highly skilled. She's highly skilled in this area.
Highly
Thanks,
skilled in
Nancy.
this area. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording now and stop the sharing. But if people, I don't know what your time is like, but if people have additional questions, stop recording. Stop. Yes, I do.